For centuries, money has been something you can hold. It could be a gold coin, a silver bar, or a paper bill. This physical nature made it easy to trust. When you gave someone a dollar bill, you no longer had it, and they did. The transaction was final and clear. There was no way for you to spend that same dollar bill again somewhere else. This simple idea is, honestly, surprisingly difficult to recreate in the digital world. Information on the internet is easy to copy. Think about a photo or a song file. You can send it to a friend, but you still have the original on your computer. You both now possess the same digital file. This is great for sharing information, but terrible for creating money. If digital money worked like a photo file, it would be a disaster. Imagine you have a digital dollar. You could send that dollar to a coffee shop to buy a latte. Then, you could immediately send that same digital dollar to an online store to buy a book. This is called the double spending problem. It would destroy any trust in the system because money could be created out of thin air just by copying and pasting it. To prevent this, we have always relied on trusted third parties like banks and credit card companies. They keep a central ledger, a master record of all transactions, to make sure that once you spend your digital dollar, it is truly gone from your account and moved to someone else's. This reliance on central authorities, however, creates its own set of problems. Banks and financial institutions act as gatekeepers. They decide who can and cannot participate in the financial system. They can freeze your account, block a transaction, or charge high fees for their services, especially for sending money across borders. For many people around the world, accessing these services is difficult or impossible. Furthermore, putting all your trust in one central entity makes the system vulnerable. If a bank's central server is hacked or experiences a technical failure, it could disrupt the financial lives of millions of people. This concentration of power and control was a source of great concern for many computer scientists and privacy advocates. These thinkers, often associated with a movement known as the cypherpunks, dreamed of a different way. They envisioned a form of digital money that could work like physical cash. It would be a system where two people could transact directly with each other, without needing a bank or any other intermediary to approve it. They wanted to create a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The goal was to solve the double spending problem using mathematics and cryptography instead of a trusted company. This would give individuals full control over their own money and create a more open, global, and censorship-resistant financial system. The challenge was immense. How do you build a system where everyone can agree on who owns what without a central boss to make the final call? The quest to create a private, secure digital currency is not a new one. It began long before Bitcoin ever entered the public consciousness. In the late 1980s and 1990s, a group of cryptographers and programmers known as the cypherpunks were already hard at work on this very problem. They believed that cryptography, the science of secure communication, held the key to protecting individual privacy in the emerging digital age. One of the earliest and most notable pioneers in this field was David Chaum. He was an American computer scientist who foresaw the privacy risks of digital transactions long before the internet became a household utility. He wanted to build a system that would allow for anonymous online payments. In 1989, Chaum founded a company called DigiCash. Its flagship product was a form of electronic money called eCash. The system was brilliant in its design. It used cryptographic principles to allow for secure and anonymous online payments. When you withdrew eCash from your bank, the software on your computer would use a cryptographic signature to make the digital coins anonymous. You could then spend this eCash at a merchant's website, and the merchant could deposit it at their bank. The bank could verify that the eCash was legitimate without knowing who originally spent it. It was a truly private form of digital money, a remarkable achievement for its time. Despite its technological brilliance, DigiCash ultimately failed to gain widespread adoption. The company struggled to convince banks to integrate its system. This was the early 1990s, and the world of e-commerce was still in its infancy. Most people were not yet comfortable with the idea of shopping online, let alone using a novel form of electronic money. The company eventually filed for bankruptcy in 1998. Other projects followed in its wake, each trying to build a better form of digital money. Ideas like B-Money from Wei Dai and BitGold from Nick Szabo explored concepts that would later become crucial components of cryptocurrencies, like decentralized ledgers and proofs of work. These early attempts, while not commercially successful, were incredibly important. They were the intellectual building blocks upon which Bitcoin would later be constructed. They identified the core problems and proposed ingenious, though incomplete, solutions. The main hurdle that none of them could fully overcome was the problem of decentralization. DigiCash, for instance, still relied on a central server run by the company to process and validate transactions. If that central server went down, the system would stop working. The world was still waiting for a breakthrough, a way to create a digital cash system that was not only private and secure, but also truly decentralized, with no single point of failure or control. The breakthrough finally arrived in late 2008. An anonymous person or group using the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto published a 9-page white paper titled Bitcoin, a Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System. This document was quietly posted to a cryptography mailing list, reaching the same community of thinkers who had been wrestling with the problem of digital cash for decades. Nakamoto's paper was elegant and powerful. It proposed a solution that combined proven ideas from earlier projects with a new, ingenious invention. This invention was a decentralized public ledger that Nakamoto called the blockchain. It was the missing piece of the puzzle that so many had been searching for. The blockchain was the answer to the double spending problem without needing a central authority. Here is how it works in a simple way. All transactions are gathered into blocks. To add a new block to the chain of previous blocks, computers on the network, known as miners, must compete to solve a complex mathematical puzzle. The first miner to solve the puzzle gets to add the next block to the chain and is rewarded with newly created Bitcoin. This process, called proof of work, requires significant computational power. Because it is so difficult and costly to solve the puzzle, it becomes practically impossible for a malicious actor to go back and alter previous transactions. To do so, they would have to resolve the puzzles for all subsequent blocks faster than the rest of the network, which would require an unimaginable amount of computing power. This system created a shared, trusted history of every transaction ever made. Because the ledger is distributed across thousands of computers all over the world, there is no central point of failure. No single person, company, or government controls it. On January 3, 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto mined the very first block of the Bitcoin blockchain known as the Genesis block. Embedded within this block was a short piece of text. The Times 03/Jan/2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This was a headline from a British newspaper, and it was widely seen as a commentary on the fragility of the traditional financial system, which was then in the midst of a global crisis. It was a clear statement of purpose for this new form of money. In its early days, Bitcoin was used only by a small community of cryptographers and tech enthusiasts. They mined coins on their home computers and sent them to each other for fun, testing the limits of the new network. The first real-world transaction famously occurred in 2010, when a programmer named Laszlo Hanyecz paid 10,000 bitcoins for 2 pizzas. At the time, those coins were worth very little. But the transaction proved that Bitcoin could function as a medium of exchange. It was a pivotal moment. Bitcoin had moved from a theoretical concept to a practical working system. It had solved the problem of creating a scarce digital object that could be transferred between people anywhere in the world, without permission from anyone. The creation of Bitcoin opened the floodgates for a wave of innovation. Its open-source code allowed other developers to study, copy, and modify its design, leading to the creation of thousands of new cryptocurrencies, often referred to as altcoins. Some of these, like Litecoin, were created to be slightly faster or more efficient versions of Bitcoin. Others, like Ethereum, introduced a radical new idea, a blockchain that could do more than just record transactions. Ethereum introduced the concept of smart contracts, which are self-executing contracts with the terms of the agreement directly written into code. This allowed developers to build decentralized applications, or dApps, on the blockchain for everything from games to financial services. Today, cryptocurrencies are used in many different ways across the globe. For some, they are a speculative investment, an asset they hope will increase in value over time, much like digital gold. For others, particularly in countries with unstable national currencies or strict capital controls, cryptocurrencies offer a vital lifeline. They provide a way to preserve savings from hyperinflation and to send and receive money across borders without the high fees and long delays of traditional banking. For example, a worker in Europe can send cryptocurrency to their family in Africa in a matter of minutes for a fraction of the cost of a typical wire transfer service. The impact of cryptocurrencies and the underlying blockchain technology is still unfolding, but it is already challenging the status quo in profound ways. It has sparked a global conversation about the nature of money, the role of banks, and the future of finance. The concept of decentralized finance, or DeFi, aims to rebuild the entire financial system, lending, borrowing, insurance, and trading, on open, decentralized platforms that are accessible to anyone with an internet connection. This promises a more transparent, efficient, and inclusive financial world, where individuals have more control over their assets and financial decisions. The journey from the cypherpunk's early dreams to today's bustling crypto ecosystem has been remarkable. What began as a niche academic problem, how to create a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, has evolved into a multi-trillion-dollar global industry. While the future remains uncertain and the technology continues to face challenges related to regulation, scalability, and security, one thing is clear. The origin story of cryptocurrency is not just about a new kind of technology, it is about a powerful idea. It's the idea that in a digital world, we should be able to control our own money and transact freely. An idea that continues to inspire and shape our modern lives.